Okay. Hey everybody, welcome back to Sprague Homestead. This is our first attempt at a live stream. So if it's a little goofy, just bear with me. This is my first time ever trying it. Before I get into questions, I'm just going to give it a few minutes and see if anybody jumps on. I know we're at kind of a weird time. And I see Farmstead Smith. Hey. All right. Oops. I'm going to have to remember not to shake the table. This is all kind of new. So if you have questions as I go through some of this stuff, I've got particularly 3 questions that everybody sent in. Just feel free to drop them in on the side or in the chat, and I will do my best to try and answer them as I go. So, how's the weather out there in Central Oregon, Farmstead Smith? Okay, we'll just go ahead and get started. So the very first question that I had, let's see here, came in about 6 days ago. Was from Ellie Lawrenson, and that was, what breed of rabbits would you recommend for a meat breeder to start with? We want to breed rabbits for meat for our family and want to get our teenage boys involved, but want a rabbit that is hardy to southern weather and good temperament all around. And hi, Darcy, I see you too. Okay, so what I would probably recommend for a good meat rabbit that's actually got a good temperament is to kind of go with your more heritage type breeds. The stuff you're going to find that's good in the heat, that's going to be a tougher thing. Palominos, some of your cinnamons, your Americans, that kind of thing. They make good meat rabbits, but they're also more heat tolerant. I've seen silver fox lines that can be tolerant, but you're going to really have to find a breeder that's kind of lower so that you can find somebody that's pretty that's got heat tolerant lines. I'm not real sure where in the South you are because I don't think it said. Yeah, I don't see where it says. But yeah, usually you're going to get the heavier furred breeds like your champagnes don't do as well as in the heat. And your true meat breeds, so your cows, your New Zealands, and your Satins are not known for good temperament. So if you're trying to get kind of a best of all worlds kind of thing, I would definitely try and stick with one of the more heritage type breeds. I'm partial to Americans. I know somebody who's got them in Texas, and they do pretty well, and then Missouri as well. So if you're looking for them and you're somewhere in those kind of areas, send me an email to srhomestead at yahoo.com, and I can get you contact information for those people that might be worth looking into. Would Flemish be hardier? I never, ever recommend Flemish Giants for meat. The thing you have to remember with Flemish, they are a giant breed, and that means giant bone. And bear with me, I keep forgetting to look up to the camera. I keep trying to look at the screen. So Flemish grow bone first, meat second. They have a lower dress out percentage than any of your true meat breeds. They weren't developed for meat. They take a really long time to grow. Um, the last thing I had seen on Flemish where somebody actually did a study, you're looking at like 45 to 50% dress out percentage, live weight to finished carcass. And of that, the last thing I had seen is a good percentage, like a quarter of its bone. And I could be wrong there, but um, Flemish are not known for producing actually good meat. I don't know why everybody's gotten quite so into crossing them into things like New Zealand, other than everybody looks at them and says size, but they're not actually good meat animals. Are they good to breed for show rabbits, for Flemish Giants? I mean, any breed can be good for show rabbits. Flemish take an awful lot of work and a lot of expensive equipment. Um, where I can take, they make triple and double carriers that I can get two and three of my, even my big Americans in. Flemish equipment tends to be really, really big. They also don't, I mean, it's a lot of work. I watch the people that actually show a lot of Flemish. There's one lady in particular that usually will bring like 25 of them to a show. And after a show, she is flat worn out. You've got, that's a lot of big rabbits running back and forth to the table. Hello to the homesteading pasture and or pastor. Sorry, I'm tired. Uh, Farmstead Smith, seems like the feed to meat output ratio would be off. Yes, Flemish costs a whole lot more to raise up. You're just not going to get the good conversion rate that you do off of something that's considered a medium bone. Like New Zealand's, even though they're a large breed, they are considered to be a medium bone rabbit. So, and hello to you too, Robin South. I see you just joined us. Okay. Does anybody have any other questions about the Flemish? Let's see. How do you recommend a cage size for such a large rabbit? If I get one, I'm curious. So Flemish, the problem that you have with Flemish is that they have no max weight. So while most of them, from what I've seen at shows and from the people I've talked to, most of them are going to run around 15, 16 pounds. That's not exactly it. I mean, I've seen 20-pound rabbits at shows. I've seen Flemish so big that they can't actually put them in the judging coops. They have to bring them and kind of hold them at the end of the table. So, for cage size, if you're really serious about getting one, you need to talk to the breeder that you're going to get them from and find out how big you can expect that particular animal to end up and kind of what they're holding them in. The standard, my standard rule of thumb tends to be at least 1 square foot for every 2 pounds of rabbit. The USDA actually says 3 pounds of rabbit to square foot, which I think is way too small. And, just they're an active rabbit. They need a lot of space. Most of the people I know that raise continental giants, which aren't that much, I mean, they can get much bigger, but continentals and Flemish kind of are in that same weight category and size category. They're raising them in hutches that are 6 and 8 feet long by about 30 to 36 inches deep. So definitely talk to your breeder and see what they recommend because I've never owned Flemish. I've had some Flemish crosses, but I've never actually had Flemish. Um, Darcy, you think they'll ever make broken Flemish showable? I don't know. I've heard of people working on it, but I've never actually seen one in person, so I don't know who is. I don't even think there's a certificate of development on them right now. So do I think they'll ever do it? I don't know. Every time I say they're not going to do something, something else comes up. Like right now, the silver fox, they're really pushing hard to try and get the chocolates and the blues recognized, and I thought that was a long shot. So I don't know. It's kind of hard to say. Anything in broken to me is beautiful. So we'll see. Have I ever raised any Florida whites? That's Dave Joy asking. I personally have not. I've had a couple of girlfriends raise them and I've spent some time at shows handling them, but I haven't actually owned any myself. Courtney Wilson, what's the best meat breed? Sorry, I'm blowing up with questions. I'm a new rabbit breeder. Okay, well, Courtney, I would recommend looking at our video that talks about the best breeds for meat rabbits. It's kind of a loaded question. If you're looking simply for growth, meat conversion, you're probably going to look at one of what's considered the big three. That's the New Zealands, the California, and the Satins. If you're looking for anything that's got a personality, I'd stay away from them. So it's kind of one of those things that it's a multi-level question. You kind of have to define exactly what you're looking for. If you're looking to do pelts, or if you're looking to maybe have kids that show or kids that handle them and are also looking for temperament, you probably want to look at one of the Flemish or not Flemish, sorry, one of the heritage type breed rabbits, and that's your Americans, Palominos, Silver Fox, that sort of thing. But yeah, you really need to define what I get this question a lot of what's the best meat breed, and it really does depend on what your overall picture means to you. Because if it means pelts too, then you're probably going to stay away from some of those others, especially if temperament's a big deal. New Zealand have the best meat conversion rate, and I can't stand them. I've owned them, and I will never, ever, ever own them again if I can avoid it. So let's see. I think I'm all caught up on questions on the live chat. So let me see here. The next question that I had post Robin, meat rabbits are mean. They certainly it's not so much that they're mean. You got to remember that meat rabbits were kind of bred for one specific purpose, and I think it's more of a lack of personality entirely, which is a whole nother problem. So okay, Floyd Lentz had asked, I'm asking this and I'm not sure if you'll know. My question is, in general, is there enough genetic diversity regionally in silver fox rabbits? As in, if I get my breed stock or brood stock from different areas, is the chance fairly good that they aren't related too closely? I know this has a ton of variables, but in general is all I'm asking. I'm not going to raise registered rabbits to eat and have no desire to show them if this helps. Okay, well, anytime you get into a rare breed, you do have to worry about genetic diversity and what's going on with them, especially in some of the rarer stuff. I know the chinchilla people and the cinnamons in particular, that's been a really big deal in the last few years of not having enough genetic diversity, especially in pockets. If you're picking two rabbits from different parts of the country, your odds are probably pretty good that you're going to get animals that aren't too closely related. Um, you also have to kind of remember, though, that you can line breed in an awful long way before you start to really have problems. So it kind of gets to be one of those things where even if you have rabbits that share an ancestor back 3 or 4 generations, you're going to still be able to breed those together and offspring back in for like 8 and 9 generations before you start to have problems. So if you're just doing it for meat, it makes no difference whatsoever. If you're going to do any kind of pedigreed stock with the idea that you might sell down the road, certainly trying to keep more genetic diversity in a pedigree is a big deal, especially a lot of times with the rare breed people. Um, but it's one of those things you have to breed really closely with rabbits for a really long time before you cause genetic abnormalities. What we often see and what people say, oh my God, that's an inbreeding problem, is actually where when you line breed stuff together, what actually happens is you flush a lot of stuff out. Things like malocclusion and rye tail, and weird colors and weird fur tend to be on recessive genes. And it's not until we start tightening that gene pool up a little bit that we start to really flush that stuff out. When you start to see a lot of weird stuff, that doesn't mean that you've inbred the rabbits. It simply means that you've tightened up your genetics enough that you've now exposed weaknesses that are already in your line. In your opinion, what would be the best smaller meat rabbit, Darcy? Triantas. Nope. Actually, I love my Triantas to death, but I would not pick Triantas. Uh, I had here real briefly a lilac rabbit from a good friend of mine. We had him here as an example when we did our rabbit class back last month. And I'm sold. Absolutely sold on the lilacs. If you can get a hold of them, I think they are a really killer little meat rabbit. I like the Triantas, but you got to remember Triantas only max out at like 6 pounds, so which takes a really long time to get there. The lilac that we had here from Heather Keller, who has Rock Hill Rabbitry in Roseburg, I think officially she's in Roseburg, Oregon. Um, he was the bomb. He had a beautiful dress out percentage, beautiful, beautiful coat of fur. His temperament, he was a male, and we had him about 5 months old, so he was a little ornery, but not like ornery, but didn't want to be touched, kind of jerky kind of thing. But I really really like them. The Florida whites, I really like them because they have a really nice dress out percentage, but they are even a little tiny bit smaller than the lilacs and take a little bit longer to grow. So if you're going to do meat rabbits, in my opinion, lilac would be my first choice. Florida white would probably be my second choice. Um, or Harlequin. I like the Harlequins. Our Harlequins aren't quite as meaty. We are a weird weight range too. We're 6.5 all the way up to 9.5 pounds. So we're listed as both a medium to a I think we're listed as a medium class rabbit because we're kind of a weird size, but they're fun because of the colors, but we do not have quite the meatiness on the body that I would like to see that we're starting to see in the lilacs and the Florida whites. Courtney, are Rex Vienna blue-eyed a good breed for pelt breeders? Are they bad moms, bad personality, stubborn with breeding? Okay, well, Rex are Rex. Vienna is it's a genetic abnormality that usually causes blue eyes, and you'll get funky white patterns and stuff like that. So a Rex is a Rex is a Rex. It's all just a color variation. Uh, Rex are extremely sweet rabbits. I had some, loved them. The things that I hated about Rex, they grow really slowly. Like I've got friends who are show breeders for them, and they just absolutely complain that for a rabbit of that size, they don't get them up to 5 pounds until they're 12, 13, 14 weeks. So they're slow growers. They are very good mothers, but they are also a lot of maintenance. The gene that causes the fur to grow so very short and kind of curly, that's kind of the Rex thing. Um, and I'm not sure exactly how this works, but I've had everybody tell me the same thing, and I saw it in my herd when I had them. It causes the toenails to grow like 3 times faster than a regular rabbit. So if you only have a few of them and can keep up on them, it's fine. But you will be trimming nails every 3 to 4 weeks. And for me, that's a lot. I have a pretty good size herd, and for me, it was too much. Even when I only had like 6 of them here, it was just too much. I didn't want to deal with it. They're also more prone to sore hocks, so you really have to watch for furring on the back legs. Unfortunately, what we see in a lot of the meat breeder groups is just Rex that aren't selected correctly, so they tend to have a lot more hawk issues. So, if you get them from a good breeder, you'd probably be fine. Just know that they grow more slowly, but they do make nice pelt rabbits. Just remember when you're growing anything for a pelt, you have to wait until prime. And prime is 8 to 9 months of age. So you do keep them for a really long time if you're doing pelts, at least if you want pelts of any kind of quality. So, Jacinda McKinley, I hope all is going well. It's going okay. I'm a little nervous about this live stream thing, but nobody's beaten me up yet. So I'll take it. All right, I think I'm caught up on questions. Let's see. Danielle asked, I've heard you talk about waiting until rabbits are 9 months old before breeding. What is the benefits to this versus 6 months? Also, what are the reasons for not breeding litter mates, even if it's for meat? Thank you. I enjoy your channel. Well, thank you, Danielle. I appreciate that. Okay, so I actually filmed this just thanks, Rob. I actually filmed this for tomorrow. So there will be a whole video talking about tomorrow. When is the right time to breed your rabbits? So I won't go over the whole thing because I think it's a 12-minute video, but the long and short of it is kind of this. Rabbits kind of got pigeonholed into this whole idea that you can breed them at 4, 5, 6 months old because that's what the New Zealand was bred for commercially. Remember that commercial rabbits are not bred for a good life. I will say this: they're built and bred for maximum production. Um, rabbits, any rabbits that's going to be over 10 pounds are not mature until they're 9 months. They're just not. They're not mentally, they're not physically, they're not emotionally. And yes, all animals have a maturity level emotionally as well. So they are not mature animals until 9 months. So when you're breeding a New Zealand or anything else at 6 months, remember that by pretty much every standard, those are still listed as juniors or just going into intermediate, which means they are the equivalent of somewhere between about a 12-year-old girl to 15, 16-year-old. It's not good for the animals. There have been studies now that say that by doing that, by breeding them at 6 months versus 9 months, you will take a rabbit that bred at 6 months, and she is usually tapped out and completely done breeding at 18 to 24 months, which is pretty early. Whereas if you will wait until 9 months, you will actually get 3.5 years before you start to see a drop off in production usually. They tend to lose their first litters when they're really young like that because they just don't understand. They're not mature enough. You can have problems with milk quality and not having enough milk, which means that any kits that do survive are going to be much, much slower growing. And in the realm of trying to grow meat animals, that's not really what we're looking for, right? We really want animals that grow as quickly as possible. Um, so it doesn't really pay, for a 3 month difference, it doesn't really pay to be breeding them too early. Now, as far as the second part of that question about breeding siblings, I would recommend that if you haven't watched the video where we talk about line breeding and other breeding terms, that you go back and watch that. There is nothing wrong with breeding full siblings. So the reason that most rabbit breeders don't breed full siblings together, it kind of comes down to a thing where for us that are trying to improve our breed or are doing show animals, it doesn't do anything for us. So the whole point of line breeding is to basically flesh out bad genes and lock in good traits. You can't really do that when you do full siblings because statistically speaking, at max, this has been studied over and over again. At max, full siblings only share 33% of the same genes. So what happens is you can't lock anything in because you don't necessarily know what genes these guys are carrying. So, from a breeding perspective, absolutely go ahead. There's actually more genetic diversity in breeding full siblings than there are to breeding a sibling back to a or offspring back to a parent. So there's no reason not to do it. Again, just be prepared that anytime you're doing any kind of line breeding, you may get funky stuff like malocclusion or rye tail or any of those other things that we talked about earlier might come up. And it's not that you're creating the problem, it's that you're exposing the problem. That's what happens when you start breeding stuff that's related that might have those same recessive genes. It's not a bad thing. In fact, we do some of it here just specifically looking for problems. If I bring something new in, I want to make sure that I'm not introducing malocclusion or anything funky into my line. So I will breed it once out of a clean line, an animal that I know doesn't carry anything, and then take an offspring back to the parent because I'm trying to see is there anything funky in that line that I might have brought in before I breed it too much into my herd. So, hope that helps to answer that. Courtney Wilson, I love your channel. You have educated me so much in the past 7 months. Well, thank you, Courtney. I try. I put up with a lot of animal rights people to get the information out to y'all, but I do try really hard to do the right thing and to try and get you the answers that y'all are looking for. Well, guys, that's the only questions I have. So if you've got questions for me, drop them in there because I mean, I guess I could just sit here and look at the screen for the next 6.5 minutes. But if you've got something to ask, now is the time. All right, Carol, it says, hi there, breeding question just got here. All right, Carol, shoot. Whatever you got, I'm good. Robin, are you stocking up on feed? 80 rabbits in the breeding herd. Actually, I've cut down. I take that back. I've got about 70 rabbits in the breeding herd. We did cut things back a little bit. So we already buy our feed by the pallet just because I get a price break on it and it's less run into town since town is 35 miles away. In October, though, they had a sale to where I could get an extra dollar a bag off. So I did buy a second pallet, but generally, no. I kind of have a backup plan at any given time of what else I could be feeding. So I've got a barn full of hay, and if I can't get feed, and I know things are kind of funny right now, I do have something I can feed. Uh, Dana, I hope I say that right. Dana Smith, do you feed your bucks differently than your does? No, not really. The only thing that's really different in the does is they might get a little calf manna when they're nursing, things like that. But I do have a whole video where I talk about feeding and how we feed our rabbits. but generally, no. The boys don't get hay, like, ever, because they don't really eat it anyway. Um, but other than that, no, it's pretty much, our feed in particular is 1 ounce per pound of body weight, and then we adjust based on the animal. So not really. It's pretty much the same all the way across. Carol, have a 10-month-old cream champagne. Been trying to get her to breed since 6 months old. She won't lift. Been 30 years since I had rabbits. No luck with about 20 presentations. Tried everything. Ugh. Okay, well, one, you start breeding her a little. Well, okay, creams are a 7 to 9 pound rabbit, so 6 months is probably okay for a cream. Try boosting her vitamin B. Try giving her some wheat germ oil, about a teaspoon. I'm assuming you've tried all the other stuff like swapping cages. You can take them for a car ride. Um, oh, my connection's acting a little funny. I hope that's going okay. You can take them for car rides, which is kind of weird. If you can put them in carriers side by side, for some reason the motion does something for does. We used to take them to shows, but um, yeah, try wheat germ oil and see if that works. I've had some success with that. The other thing you can do is something called flushing, because she might be getting fat. Creams and champagnes are notorious for that. Um, you can basically pull her off of feed entirely and feed her nothing but grass hay for 2 weeks. And then not only put her back on her feed ration, but also kick in a little calf manna. And I mean like a teaspoon a day. What it does is it boosts their protein up. So it drops their protein real low, because there's not a lot of protein in grass hay. And one, a lot of times you'll shed some of the fat off the internal organs if that's part of the problem. Uh, but it kind of triggers this thing where they think that it's coming out of winter into spring, which is kind of weird. But uh, a friend of mine told me about it years ago that they do it in sheep. I don't breed sheep, so I don't really know. But um, and then, when you add in that protein, it's like fresh grass and fresh vegetation coming on. And sometimes it will trigger a hard breeder to believe that it is spring and time to breed. So um if you want, Carol, send me an email at srhomestead@yahoo.com, and let's talk about it offline and see what you've done and what you haven't done, and we can see if we can get you going. Our cream champagne's hard to breed. So cream d'Argent, yes. Unfortunately, all the Argent breeds, so your Argent Brune, your Champagne d'Argent, and your creams are a little bit difficult. I had champagnes for a while and got rid of them because, quite frankly, they were a pain in the keister. And let's see, what do you add in after 2 weeks? Oh, after 2 weeks of flushing them with the grass hay, I use calf manna, which I hear is getting really expensive. You can also use black oil sunflower seeds. About a teaspoon of those a day will boost up their protein a little bit, and try that. But yeah, send me an email. We can talk about all that, because it sounds like you've done you've done a lot. I've been there with the champagnes. We had tons of problems getting them to breed too. They build up internal fat faster than other breeds. Keto Cutie said, I got a silver fox buck. When he's mounting doe, he pulls fur out. Is that normal? Yes and no. It kind of depends on how old he is. I see it a lot more in bucks under a year old, where they just get like a little overexcited with the hair pulling and pull some out. As long as he's not leaving wounds on her, I wouldn't be too worried about it. If he is, I'd pull him out and quit trying to use him for a couple weeks, and to see if he's lacking maturity. If he's older, he might just be overly aggressive. I mean, it does happen. I have an American buck right now that, if the girls don't say yes within like 15 minutes, he starts getting rough with them. So it's not normal in champagne or in silver fox, but it happens. I mean, you get aggressive males and everything. Um, okay. Okay, Carol, yeah, I'll keep an eye on my email box for you on that. Okay, Jacinda McKinley, I have a rabbit that seems to always go off her feed for the last 2 weeks of her pregnancy. I just make sure she has lots of hay and keep the pellets there for her, but she doesn't touch them. Is that normal? Um, I like to think in pregnancy there is no normal. Every girl seems to be a little bit different. I have that exact same situation going on right now in a Harlequin. So it's not abnormal, but Every girl seems to do something a little bit differently. Echo is my girl right now, and she's doing 2 days, and she's barely touched food in 2 weeks. If it's a nice time of year and you can get some greens into them and just keep them eating something, that's kind of a big deal, or hay or whatever they'll touch. Because what my girls always do is they go off the pellets, but then they'll eat stuff that they normally wouldn't, like alfalfa or dandelions, things like that. And I don't do a whole lot of that kind of stuff. But you know, I'd rather have their gut moving and them not getting ill from not eating. But yeah, if she doesn't eat anything, it's as long as she's drinking water and she's still looking okay, I wouldn't get too concerned. It's just kind of going to be her thing. Uh, Dana Smith, what cage size do you recommend for an 8 to 9 pound rabbit? I did mention this earlier. So, my rule of thumb is 2 pounds live weight for a rabbit per square foot. Uh, that's not the. It doesn't work the best in every breed. I will say that. The more high strung the rabbit, the bigger the cage. If you've got a 9 pound doe, you always make sure you kick in a couple extra square feet for kits. So, like my 9 pound Harlequins live in 30 by 30 cages or 36 by 30, depending on what I've got. My bucks, it also depends on the breed. And if you're breeding bigger, longer rabbits and you're using the buck for breeding, make sure that you've got a cage big enough that the doe can sprawl out during breeding. I don't like to use anything smaller than 30 by 30 on my Harlequins or my Americans, just because I think they need more room than that. The USDA actually says 3 pounds of rabbit per square foot of cage, which I think is crazy small, but um, 30 by 30, 30 by 36 for somebody, a doe that's going to have babies, I think would be fine. Courtney says, do you breed Flemish Giant? I don't. I have Americans, which are a smaller version, at least in the minds of most people. They're pretty similar as far as temperament. They're the same mandolin body type. I don't breed Flemish. It's for meat, they're not cost effective, and I'm already in my early 40s, so I don't want to deal with a rabbit that's going to be 15, 16 pounds. It's just it's exhausting when you've got to do nails, and it's exhausting if you're showing. And yeah, it's just kind of one of those things. I don't breed them. I do like them. I've looked at them at shows and thought, yeah, those are cool rabbits, but not for me. Keto Cutie. So he's about 7 months. He doesn't hurt them. Yeah, it just sounds like he's a little young and a little overexcited with the hair pulling. We've had some of our Americans do it too. Just kind of give him some time and see if he mellows out. Courtney Wilson. I've been looking for one for a year and a half. There are a lot of Flemish breeders. You want to look for I want to say it's the Flemish Giant Federation, the National Breed Club. Um, Try Googling that. If that's not right, you can go onto the Arbo webpage and usually go to the breed listing, click on it, and a lot of times it'll take you to the National Breed Club. Contact their secretary and they can tell you who in your area breeds them. Flemish are all over the place. There are a ton of breeders in the United States. Let's see. Do I know anybody who breeds them near Central Arkansas? I don't off the top of my head. I know most of the West Coast breeders for Flemish, but I don't know a lot of the breeders in the center part of the country. Dana Smith, what rabbit would you love to add next if you could? Oh boy. Okay, so I honestly would probably have them all if I could. My husband would probably have a stroke if he heard me, and he's in the back room, so maybe he didn't. But right now, the one that I have my eye on that I would love to get, and they are not ARBA recognized. They are new in the United States, and I say new because I think they've been here like 5 years. Is the blue Hollister. So it is a slightly bigger version of the Trianta. Our Triantas run up to 6 pounds. I think the Hollisters run 6 to 8. They are a steel blue. If you've been around very long, you know that I really, really, really like blue rabbits for some reason. Like the blue magpies are my favorites. I've got the blue Americans, and then it extends past that. I've got blue turkeys and I've got blue Swedish ducks and I've got a whole bunch of blue chickens. So apparently, I really like blue animals for God only knows what reason. But the Hollisters are something I've been really looking forward to, and was actually going to pick up a, probably a trio at convention this year, but of course, convention got canceled. So who knows? Maybe next year, maybe not. They're kind of a neat bunny. They super, super, super muscular, and that was part of why I was interested in them, is to kind of see what their meat potential was. They have kind of a funky fur too, so it's not as long as the normal fur that we have in the United States, but it's not quite as short as the Rex fur, and it's not quite like, it's pretty thick and pretty plushy, but it's kind of a different consistency all the way around. I've always thought they were kind of cool. Happened to see them online once, and I've actually been talking to a couple breeders for the last year about them, and I don't know, maybe I've got an English lop that hangs around here too, and I've been telling myself for the last year I'll get him a girlfriend. But what is the coolest rabbit you've ever owned, individual or breed? Uh, Boy, that's a tough one. I've had a lot of rabbits that I really thought were pretty nifty. I had a mini Rex that wasn't quite as mini Rex as he should have been. He was like a half a pound to a pound over the standard. He was a cool guy. I liked him a lot. His name was Reese. He came with us from Mississippi all the way to Oregon when we moved, and unfortunately, he got wry neck, and we had to put him down at like 6.5, 7 years old. He was a really cool guy. My very first American buck was a really was a really pretty chill guy. I liked him a lot. He was about 12 pounds, which is really big for an American buck, but he was so funny. You'd pull him out and turn him over to do his toenails. And the first time I thought he died, he just went completely limp on me. And I thought, what in the heck is this? And he would go to sleep every time you turn him over. He just loved it. And he loved having his belly rubbed. And he was just a pretty cool, pretty cool guy. Uh, Unfortunately, he started developing age problems and ended up having to be put down. And right now, my favorite in the barn is probably, it's a toss up between my really old, and I say really old, but he's like 7.5 now, I think. He is a half mini Rex, quarter mini lop, quarter lion head, and it's he's kind of a weird little dude. I bred him when I first started. You know, everybody starts and they breed pets, and now I look back and I think, oh my god. But oh, he's like half lopped, so one ear completely lops down, and the other one kind of does this little sideways thing. And we let him out sometimes when we're doing chores, and he runs around the barn, and so he's pretty cool. And then my English lop is a real card. For some reason, I think he's afraid to trip over his own ears, so he like holds his head down when he runs around his cage, which is kind of funny. But he's real big on toys and that kind of stuff, so he's kind of fun. Um, I'm not sold on the giant ear thing by any stretch, but I've enjoyed him so far. Farmstead Smith, sorry I have to run. Husband got off work. Well, thanks for stopping by, Homestead Smith or Farmstead Smith. So we'll catch up with you later. Robin, what rabbit breed is the smallest for a pet rabbit? I think officially the smallest in the ARBA is the Netherland dwarf. I think. If not, it's probably no. It's either that or Britannia petite. I don't think they make good pets though. The smallest thing that I would say would makes an actually halfway decent pet would probably be your lion heads. They're like 2.5 pounds. They're kind of cool little guys. A little bit of work on the wool, um, but they got killer little personalities. I haven't met a lion head yet that I thought was a jerk, so that's saying something. They're pretty decent little rabbits. Holland lops I don't recommend. I don't really care for them. We had one that was a pretty nice little rabbit, but overall they have a lot of malocclusion problems and that kind of stuff. So um, probably lionhead is the smallest true pet rabbit type thing. as far as I'm concerned, anyway. Keto Cutie, I really like Mini Rex personalities. Generally, I do too, but I will tell you this, and people always think I'm crazy, but the worst maulings, the worst bites I've ever seen happen on show tables have always been Mini Rex. And I don't know exactly why that is, but I was at West Coast Classic one year and it's held at the Reno Sparks Convention Center. Great big room. We were at the other end and we heard this woman screaming bloody murder. And it turned out that she had a mini Rex latch onto her arm and was actually sawing its teeth back and forth into her arm. They had to dislocate the jaw of that rabbit to get it off of her. And was not the first and was not the last time I've ever seen a mini Rex attack somebody on a show table. So generally, I like him. We had one, like I said, we had a little torted mini Rex, and I loved him. I thought he was the coolest rabbit ever, but apparently some of the lines are a little bit nasty. Courtney Wilson, which is bigger, continental or Flemish? A continental. They also do not have a minimum size. I'm not sure how big they're getting. Somebody online was telling me that they had a 35-pound continental. Now, I don't know. Like I said, I've never seen one in person, so I don't know, but I will tell you the pictures that I've seen, those are the biggest rabbits I've ever seen. The Flemish used to get really, really big, and I guess there are European lines of them, but most of the Flemish in the United States are going to be under 20 pounds, but a lot of the Continentals are going to be over 20 pounds. You are never going to get them recognized in the ARBA. They are just strictly pet type enthusiast animals. ARBA has said that they are too close in overall build, color, and personality for a Flemish, and actually a junior and intermediate continental, if they make the weight marks, can actually show as a Flemish giant. Dana asks, "Have you ever raised cream d'argent?" I haven't. A friend of mine did for a while. I raised the champagne d'argent because it was a better meat size animal. Uh, they all tend to be pretty much the same. Another friend of mine raised the Argent Bruins, which are the brown version of it, and they seem to have the same personality, the same flaws in breeding and that kind of thing. So, Darcy, mini Rex are very protective of their space and will let you know if they don't like you or what you're doing. I will wholeheartedly agree with that. Rabbits in general tend to be that way, at least most breeds that I've been around. But uh, yeah, I loved mini Rex for a long time, and the first time I saw one bite a judge, I was like, "Huh." And that that time at West Coast Classic really made an impression on me. Okay, Jacinda, I love the personality of the French Slops. They are so laid back. Mine always wants cuddles and to reach out for kisses. Just because they are for meat doesn't mean they can't be loved. No, absolutely. French Slops. I've one of my friends that lives in Illinois. Her name is Lynn Eden. They have Eden's Lops, and I don't know if she is right now, but she was the president of the Lop Club. I think Lop Club of America is what is it's for English and French lops, and they are really cool. They are probably the most multi rabbits I've ever seen. When we went to Indiana last year for Harlequin Nationals, a girlfriend and I drove, and we went back to see Lynn on the way home, and I was amazed by the fur everywhere. There was this it's like they never stop molting, and that's what Lynn said too, is they're kind of big and kind of, I won't say dopey, but they kind of are. They're kind of big and kind of dopey. Um, they're not the best meat rabbit just because they are also a giant. They're actually classified a giant breed, so they are heavy bone, but they are a cool rabbit. Uh, Dana Smith, what are your thoughts on bringing in other breeds to fix body type? This is one of my favorite questions, and you're going to get the answer that the president of the Harlequin Club is going to give you, because we have a lot of this in the Harlequin Club. Is kind of the big thing. I am not a fan of crossbreeding anything, especially if you're when you say you're fixing body type. A lot of times that means that you're working with a purebred. There's no reason to. Uh, Cull harder and look for better stock. Uh, Too many people think breeding outside breeds in fixes things, and it doesn't. particularly for us as Harlequins, we are what's labeled as a four-class breed. So we mature at 6 months. The things that people have brought in to fix this breed have caused us huge amounts of problems. They've brought in New Zealand's, and the problem with this is now we've got rabbits that are still hitting within our weight categories, but they're not maturing until 9 months, which is just totally off of our standard. We're getting a lot of funky colors like sables. I've now seen champagne d'Argent fur type pop up. Um, what else have we seen? We've seen, I was trying to think. I mean, the list, particularly fur types, this is how we know that we've got satin blood in there. You'll breed two animals that are closely related in a line breeding, and satin fur will come out, Rex fur will come out. I'm not a big fan of the crossbreeding. It causes way more problems than it's worth. We're having that problem in the Americans right now too. We're starting to see our head shape, our ear shape, and our fur length completely destroyed. It's not what the breed is supposed to be. And that's particularly because we have a breeder in California who mostly breeds white Americans, brought in white New Zealands and figured she'd get away with it. She was bringing in long-shouldered New Zealands that had the great rear end, which is where the American got into some trouble. We were losing our big, nice, full booty, and she brought that in to fix it. And judges sometimes will get so over focused on something that they forget that there are other points that make an animal. And so now we're starting to see shorter ears. We're starting to see temperament problems because Americans are very, very sweet rabbits generally, and New Zealand's are not. So we're starting to see a lot more temperament issues. And like I said, fur problems, ear problems, head shape problems. So I don't believe that that fixes anything. It's a shortcut. A lot of people do it. But I think it's the lazy man's way of trying to make improvements. I know that's probably pretty harsh to a lot of people, but I do. I think it's being lazy. There are good genetics in every breed. You just have to work a little harder for them sometimes. Okay, let's see. See, Courtney had said she'd be right back. If nobody has anything, I've gone a little over. I was only shooting for 30 minutes, and I see we're rapidly approaching 50 here. If nobody has anything else, let's see. Courtney's back, and let's see. Dana says, I breed Rex and I see a lot and hear a lot of it mixing in New Zealand's. I agree a lot with you. It's just the quick fix. Yeah, it's just it is. It's just lazy. There are traits. I think what happens is people want to take one thing and say, okay, well that's got great type, and I'm going to throw it in there, and that's going to fix it all. And it might for a generation or two, but you really got to get to the root of what is the problem first and foremost. So we have this problem in Harlequins when I started, and I get a lot of compliments now for having a really good type Harlequin on the tables without any crossing. The problem that we had was you usually had the magpies had all the width in the world, side to side. They had great width, but the Japanese had all the depth. So they had the nice full arch, the nice full legs, but they were narrow. So I started crossing the two groups. It's within my breed. So it's not really a reach to me to cross the two. You have to watch for color issues and that kind of thing. And after 5 years of doing that, I now have a rabbit that's pretty middle of the road of both. We don't have the amazing depth that we used to have with the Japs. We don't have the amazing width that we had with the magpies, but we're hitting a really nice medium in between. Um, and I think that's what has to happen, right? You have to kind of work at it. That's not what's happening with a lot of stuff. And I see Robin saying she showed dogs. She agrees on the crossing, and it's not just in rabbits, right? We see it in everything. But you've got to kind of get to the root of the problem. Like you're always going to have that, right? Within Rex, I've had them wide and I've had them deep, and I've very seldom had them right where they need to be. But that's your job as a breeder. If you're working forward on your breed, is to bring in those different pieces, or in Harlequins, we refer to everything as body parts. You got to bring in those body parts, right? And smash them together. And that takes breeding, and it takes line breeding, and it takes really aggressive culling. Um, but there is no easy way. I mean, no risk, no reward, I guess, but you've got to really work at it. If you're going to really get somewhere, you got to put in the time. Let's see. Keto cutie standard fur carries Rex fur. I'm not sure what you're saying there. If you're saying if you cross the New Zealand in with Rex, yes, that's what happens. The first generation is um hold on. Liza, shush. House dogs. um what you'll get is you'll get the first generation is you're going to get standard fur because it's dominant. Rex fur is a recessive. And then what happens is you take the best looking one of those offspring and you breed them back into the Rex, and then you'll get a certain percentage of Rex fur, and then you just start culling the standard fur out. So yeah, it is Rex is a recessive. Dana, yes, puzzle pieces exactly. It's all about getting them to fit together correctly. Um, oh, okay. Courtney said if one breeds a Flemish buck to a Rex doe, what will it produce? Maybe that's what Keto Cutie was saying. Standard fur carries Rex fur. Yes, unless, of course, the Flemish already has some Rex in it. Unfortunately, Flemish is another thing that you're starting to see a lot of weird stuff floating around. I'm not sure why you would want to do that, to be honest, but um, if you're just a tinker and you're just going to eat them all, breed whatever to whatever. Let's see. Can you talk more or do a video on live breeding? It gets me so confused. I actually do have a line breeding video that just talks about the terms and kind of explains what it actually means and what you're talking about when you say line breeding. Um, you may want to watch that and see if that kind of answers. Like, I don't know if you're looking for some very specific information or um, just an overall kind of synopsis of what all that means, but there is a video that kind of talks about line breeding. Uh, Specifically, I'm going to be doing a video probably in the next month talking about how you eliminate, um, how you lock in traits and how you eliminate bad traits through line breeding. We had that question come up when I had my class, and it's kind of a complicated thing. So I'm trying to figure out how to do it in the video, but I'm thinking just how to line breed. Yeah, I think I'm gonna just make a whole video about it that kind of explains what you're doing. Line breeding is one of those things that you kind of have to have a master plan as to why you're doing it. Um, and it's usually one of two things: you're trying to lock in traits, or you're trying to eliminate other traits. So I'll probably just do a video here in the next month that kind of goes over how to do that because, like I said, I had a lot of people asking. All three of the folks that were here for the class were asking about it, and I've had some other people that I've walked through it in email. But it's probably time just to do a video, as y'all have been around for a while and got the basics down. Maybe it's time for more advanced stuff. Anita Culp just got home, missed a lot. Well, good. You're lucky it'll replay. um, Dana and who to pick to go with who. Yeah, it can be kind of tough. You've got to figure out a whole master plan for what you're doing and why you're doing it. I see a lot of people line breed with no plan, and that's just breeding rabbits. We do everything with intention, right? So, and that's probably just because I am a show breeder first and foremost. So, it's all about why am I doing it? And a lot of times, like if I'm taking a buck with a really good top line and his daughter has a really good top line, I will breed them together because I'm trying to make sure that one, we've shed out those maybe not so great top line genetics, but I'm trying to get that good thing kind of locked in there. Courtney, is it better to give a rabbit a water bottle or bowl or both? It's okay. So rabbits will drink better out of a bowl. I mean, that's just the facts of life. They will drink better out of a bowl. That said, if you get into a bigger rabbit, like you keep talking about Flemish, it's really hard to get a bowl big enough to keep them in water all the time. And that's kind of our thing with the Americans. We will use a 32-ounce bottle, and sometimes they will completely suck that thing down in a day. So for me, I want to make sure that they have water. So trying to have a 32-ounce bowl of water in there is an awful lot of water. And anytime you're dealing with a bowl of water, now you're worried about bugs getting in it and, they'll get contaminated. Sometimes rabbits will pee in them. Rabbits next to them will pee in it. They'll get feed in it, that kind of stuff. So I like the bottle for the cleanliness factor. There's certainly nothing wrong with giving both. And, you know, but for kids, I make them learn how to drink out of the water bottle. But what tends to happen is when I start showing rabbits and they've grown up with a water bottle and then they get the Crocs in the carriers, they tend to try and inhale water through their nose, which is both funny and not funny at the same time. So, whatever you're comfortable with, whatever, as long as the rabbits have water, it really doesn't matter. I know an awful lot of people who like to do Crocs. You do get a lot less dental injuries if you're using Crocs instead of water bottles, and that's just because rabbits tend to play with it and can chip up their teeth that they don't do with Crocs. If you're going to go with Crocs, make sure you're using ceramic though, because they will chew the heck out of everything else. Darcy, I give both. I have a cage in their play area and bottles for their cages, and fresh veggies, fruit for extra water and nutrients. I'm always funny about fresh veggies and fruit, but if it's working for you, that's fine. Robin, bottle in the summer, bowls in the winter. That's pretty much what we do too. We get to a point where you just can't keep bottles from freezing. Most of the time in our barns, because we're slightly insulated and because we've got so many rabbits in there for body heat, we can usually keep the bottles at liquid even down to 10. But yeah, in the other building, I kind of have pop-up tent kind of thing, one of those pop-up garage things over a flush clean unit, and everybody in there is on Crocs already because otherwise I can't keep them in water. Darcy says easy removable Crocs are great. Yeah, definitely agree. If you're gonna do Crocs, I ceramic bowls are really nice, but I do like the heavy Crocs just because then they can't flip them over, which is kind of nice. Dana says, "How long have you been raising rabbits?" This is kind of a kind of a wild, twisty road there. I got my very first rabbit, which was a New Zealand, a very not nice New Zealand, when I was, and my mom and I go back and forth on this, either second or third grade. Um, it wasn't a very friendly rabbit. My brother and I both got one from my uncle who was breeding meat rabbits at the time. And then in high school, I had a lop. Um, and then I kind of got out of rabbits after that. And I have been doing rabbits now for 10 years, 9 years, pretty solidly. I've been showing now for 5, I think. I got into doing pedigreed rabbits about 6.5 years ago. Um, but yeah, rabbits kind of take over your life when you start showing them. So, yeah, it's been a very solid 6 years, 5 years of doing rabbits, every single day, dealing with them. And we started when I when I started this time, we were still in Mississippi, and I convinced my husband that we'd do them for meat. And that was a little bit, the first ones to butcher are always the hardest. So he was not real sold on the whole meat rabbit thing. We had my dad come over and help butcher the first sets, and now it's kind of old hat, right? But in the beginning, we weren't real sure. We got them, and then they're cute, fuzzy bunnies, and it took a little bit. But yeah, the rabbit thing kind of snowballed in and of itself. But Darcy said veggies and fruits in small quantities, of course. Of course, just watch your fruits in particular. Remember, fruits are really, really high in sugar, so just keep an eye on that. They're more likely to give diarrhea. I give mine some apples and bananas every once in a great while, and just watch them. It's fine. Okay, does anybody have anything else? We're just about to hit the hour mark. I think I've gotten everything here. Let me kind of look. Kathy McCune. I hope I said that right. For breeding stock, do you choose body size first and best you can with color, or color first and do do best you can with body size. Um, okay, so because I look at everything through the lens of a meat breeder first and foremost, I have to have good substance. So I want good body type. Um, I kind of think if you're going to breed them, you can always fix the paint later. Okay. So there's an old saying that came out of I want to say it was the French lot breeders years and years ago, and that is you build your house before you paint it. And that tends to be very, very true in pretty much all regards. So, especially when you're doing meat animals, you want to pick the best conformation that you can. You want to hit the most important parts. So, you want a nice thick loin and nice big legs. Um, and then you worry about the paint. So, color should always kind of be a second thing. If you're doing purebred rabbits, pedigreed rabbits, keep in mind that there are some things that you've got to hit the color. It's kind of a big thing, like your cinnamons have to be a certain color. Um, color is important if you're doing pedigree stuff. If you're doing meat, absolutely, the house needs to be the first thing. Um, but as long as you have the right color, like I see Americans sometimes that have really poor blue, you can fix that later on. Confirmation needs to be first and foremost. You can always breed in stuff that has better color later on to fix the color, um, but there's no point in doing it if you're going to have really, really crappy body type. Dana Smith, I just started showing 2 years ago. Well, welcome to the crazy. When I first met the gal who got me started in Harlequins, she said to me, "Well, you should start come to a show with me and start showing." And I was like, "There's no way." I showed llamas for years and years and years, and I was like, "There's just no way. I'm not doing the show thing ever again." And then about 3 months later, she was going to a show and she said, "Why don't you come with me? Why don't you come with me?" And I went and I didn't show anything. I helped her show her New Zealand. And yeah, that it's and here we are. Here we are all these years later. And um yeah, I show 3 breeds currently, and I've shown several others that I don't have anymore. And you definitely kind of get into it. Showing is a world unto itself. Robin South, thank you so much. Thank you for popping in and watching, Robin, Darcy. Yes, thank you. I appreciate you guys all coming in. I was a little worried that nobody was going to show up for this thing. Anita, do you breed for disposition? Breed specifically for it? Not exactly. Do I cull for it? Absolutely. So I will put up with aggression, some aggression in a pregnant doe. I will put up with a buck who's a little bit aggressive when I'm getting does in and out of cages. I absolutely have zero tolerance for biters. Um, I have zero tolerance for bucks that hit over a year old and still spray. I don't put up with a doe who bites. I don't put up with a doe who slaps if she's not pregnant. Um, it's just kind of one of those things. I don't specifically aim for disposition, but part of that is that my herd is already really a pretty good herd. But I do absolutely cull. I have put some really nice looking rabbits in the freezer, and this is kind of why I got out of champagnes. Um, I just won't tolerate that kind of stuff. It's not necessary. I like an aggressive doe when she's taking care of her babies, but if she's gonna bite at me, that's a little too much. And so, yeah, I've put a lot of really nice looking rabbits into a freezer because I won't pass that along either. I mean, a lot of people have said, "Oh, you can just sell them." If I won't keep it, I won't. I won't sell it to anybody else either. So, definitely, I think temperament's important. Disposition. Um, you run into that a lot with New Zealand's where people just don't care because they're meat animals, right? So as long as they make nice meat and nice big full bodies, they don't really care. And I think that's kind of the tragedy of the breed, and you're starting to see a lot of people move away from those animals because of it. Uh Dana, I just love it. This year has been hard with no shows. It has been really tough. Basically, we started going into lockdowns like a week before my Harlequin Nationals. Like I think it was less than a week before I was supposed to leave, and I was supposed to drive all the way to North Carolina. So it's it's definitely been tough. And like we were supposed to have a show in Cottage Grove, Oregon next weekend, and I had been on the fence about whether or not I was going to go. And then sure enough, the state of Oregon locked down again. So I have not been to a show since March, which um, generally for me, I do anywhere from 7 to 10 show weekends in a year, which doesn't sound like a lot, but I take summer off and some of the colder part of the winter, snowier part of the winter. And I went to two this year. I went to one in February and then one in March. So it's been a kind of a bummer year. And the worst part of it is this, I just became president of the American Harlequin Club back in January. And so I got to be president, had all these great things planned, and we have done nothing. We've done absolutely nothing. So it's kind of a bummer. Let's see. So Kathy McCoon, I hope I'm saying that right. I'm bad at names. McCoon says very clear explanation. Thanks. This was fun. I appreciate you coming in and watching. Anita, I feel the same. Good. Absolutely. Temperament's important. Um, Dana, how has this affected your breeding? As far as the closures and shutdowns, it hasn't at all. In fact, I sold more rabbits than I ever have this spring to people looking to buy stuff to make meat breeders. So I still run a pretty heavy duty waiting list on all of my breeds. So it really didn't affect me any. If anything, I sold rabbits this year that I probably would have kept for myself, just because my program is full and I am going to repeat some of the breedings and just try it again. So yeah, it's kind of, I know a lot of people who slack down, but for me, I have a coal buyer that I work with who comes through every few weeks. So anything that I can't sell to somebody else, as soon as I can get them to 5 pounds, he buys them at $1.70 a pound live weight. So it hasn't really affected me much. I know it's been a lot tougher for a lot of other people, and we're pretty blessed that we've been able to have the outlets that we have. So it's kind of one of those things. Robin said, I miss friends since I quit showing dogs. Yeah, that's probably been the biggest thing for me this year with all of our shows closed is I tend to be a bit of a homebody, as I'm sure y'all can imagine, because I spent a lot of time with the rabbits and just doing the homesteading thing. And um, yeah, I miss my friends. It's been pretty tough, but I show with a really pretty strong group of women here in the Pacific Northwest in the Harlequin Club, and we've still managed to talk. Several of those ladies are absolutely my best friends. One lives like 35 miles from me, and the other one I talk to quite regularly. And then I mentor a couple. Actually, the hardest part for me has probably been that I mentor a couple teenage girls and I haven't been able to see them. And then when I do get to see them, I swear they've grown like a foot and they've got new boyfriends and they've just got a million things going on. And I feel very out of the loop. But the people I like the competition of it for sure, but it's definitely the people is why I enjoy showing the rabbits. Keto Cutie, I hopefully will start showing silver foxes late next year. Good. Silver fox need all the people they can get. This is how I feel about the Americans too. And the silver fox people have really seen a huge resurgence in their numbers in the show tables, which I think is just awesome. Uh, if I had all the cages and time and some really, you know, great little people to watch my rabbits and clean my cages for me all the time, I might have some silver foxes one day, but not in the cards right now. Dana Smith, this is fantastic. Thanks so much for the live chat. Have a good night, and hopefully you do this again. I am really thinking about doing these maybe at least once a month in place of my Mailbag Monday. Uh, I don't know. It sounds like fun, but thanks for stopping in, Dana. And I think if nobody has anything else, I'll give you all a second here. But if nobody else has anything else, we'll call it a wrap because it's already way longer than I anticipated. You get me started talking about rabbits, and I just don't stop. But yeah, I think I'm gonna try and do these like once a month instead. And I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. My internet connection is not always so great. So Keto Cutie says thanks. Thank you, everybody. I think I'm just going to go ahead and close it. I need to probably make some dinner. Kanan's probably starving. So thanks, everybody, for stopping in. And if you have other questions, you can always get a hold of me. You can send me messages, post on videos, send me emails, srhomestead at yahoo.com. I'm on Instagram, we're on Facebook. We are pretty much everywhere. So that is it for this time. We will see you next time. Thank you all for stopping in and being part of my first live stream. You guys made it so much more fun than I thought it was going to be. And I was terrified in the beginning, but it would, you know, it turned out okay. I appreciate everybody being so willing to chat and to ask questions. So, all right, that's it for tonight. Thank you guys.